When we hear the name Mata Hari, one of history's most mysterious and controversial female figures, our minds immediately conjure up images of an enchanting Oriental dancer and dangerous spy. This name, meaning Eye of the Dawn, tells the story of a woman who swept through Europe's salons and stages at the beginning of the 20th century, only to disappear into the dark atmosphere of World War I. But who was Mata Hari really? Was she truly the dangerous spy she was accused of being, or was she an innocent woman who fell victim to the war paranoia of her time? Mata Hari's real name was Margaretha Zelle, and she was born on August 7, 1876, in Leeuwarden, the capital of the Friesland province in the Netherlands. Her father, Adam Zelle, was a well-known merchant of his time who owned a small hat shop. Her mother, Antje van der Meulen, was known as a wealthy, beautiful, and elegant woman. Margaretha's childhood was spent according to the typical living standards of a middle-class Dutch family of that era. But family happiness didn't last long. When Margaretha was still a young girl, her father faced financial difficulties and eventually went bankrupt. This situation deeply shook the family and led to tensions between her parents. Eventually, the couple decided to divorce, and with her mother's death in 1891, Margaretha's life changed completely. Now living with relatives, the young girl would feel the impact of these early losses throughout her life. After her mother's death, Margaretha continued to grow up under the care of relatives. She was sent to a teacher's college in Leiden to continue her education. Margaretha, who was intelligent and talented, managed to attract attention there, but this attention sometimes led to unwanted consequences. The school principal fell in love with his beautiful and attractive student, but Margaretha had no time for such a relationship. She had completely different plans for the future. When she turned 18, Margaretha left the teacher's school and moved to her uncle's place in The Hague. Here, the young woman hoped to fulfill one of the typical romantic fantasies of those days, marrying an officer. In early 1895, an advertisement she read in the newspaper offered her the chance to make this dream come true. The ad announced the marriage intentions of Captain Rudolf MacLeod, who was stationed in Indonesia, a Dutch colony, and was spending his leave in The Hague. Actually, this advertisement was a fake piece written as a joke by one of the captain's journalist friends. However, Margaretha took the ad seriously and sent a letter along with her photograph. Captain MacLeod liked only Margaretha's letter among the 15 he received, and the two young people fell in love at first sight. The couple married on July 11, 1895, and soon became a family. Their son Norman was born on January 30, 1896. On May 1, 1897, Rudolf and Margaretha set off for Java. From this point on, a complex period began that would make it impossible to understand Mata Hari's true personality. Eastern life initially proceeded normally. The couple lived in Java and Sumatra between 1897 and 1902, and during this time they had another child, a daughter they named Marie-Jeanne. But happiness didn't last long. Little Norman died mysteriously when he was only 5 years old. According to some sources, the child was killed by poison given by the nanny, while others claim he died from mercury drugs used to treat syphilis that he contracted from his parents. This tragic event deeply shook the couple's marriage. It was already rumored that MacLeod treated Margaretha badly and had infected her with syphilis. After their child's death, their shared life began to resemble hell. Margaretha was searching for both herself and the happiness she had lost. In 1902, the couple returned to Holland and divorced. Margaretha initially got custody of her daughter, but when her ex-husband refused to provide financial support, she was forced to leave the child in his care. The alimony she received from her husband wasn't enough for Margaretha, and the young woman found herself in a difficult situation. Towards the end of 1903, Margaretha came to Paris with her mind made up. She would now build a new life, and this life would consist of loving and dancing. Initially starting professional dancing under the name Lady MacLeod, Margaretha soon created a completely different identity for herself. There was a conscious strategy behind choosing the name Mata Hari. This name meant Eye of the Day, i.e., the sun in Malay and eye of dawn in Hindi. Margaretha used her tall stature and extremely attractive appearance, along with her superficial familiarity with East Indian dances, to create an exotic past for herself. According to the story she told Parisian society, Mata Hari was born on the Malabar coast in southern India. Her father was a priest from the Brahmin class, and her mother was a dancer. From a young age, she had been taught sacred dances and rituals in the vaults of the Kandaswami temple. The high priestess had decided to dedicate her to the service of the god Shiva because she sensed extraordinary talents in Mata Hari. This enchanting legend was believed by most Parisians. On March 13, 1905, Mata Hari performed sacred Hindu dances at an exclusive party held at the Guimet Museum. Those present were not only amazed by her beauty, but also marveled at her deep knowledge. Mata Hari had now stepped onto history's stage. Mata Hari's dances were quite bold and provocative according to the moral understanding of the time. The dancer, who took the stage in costumes that could be considered almost naked, performed a blend of Eastern mysticism and Western hedonism. This courage and originality brought her instant success in Paris and other major European cities. Mata Hari's success wasn't limited to just her stage performances. Throughout her adult life, she had many lovers, most of whom were officers and high-ranking military personnel. While some of these relationships were based on genuine love, others were motivated by financial gain. In the social structure of the time, women who led such lifestyles were met with both admiration and suspicion. By 1912, patriotism in France had almost become a religion. In this period, when the footsteps of World War I could be heard, everyone seemed to see spies everywhere. In this paranoid atmosphere, people like Mata Hari, who had international connections and led lifestyles considered suspicious, naturally attracted attention. The French Intelligence Service's Second Bureau, which dealt with espionage and intelligence matters, put Mata Hari under surveillance and opened a file in her name at the Ministry of War. It was said that Mata Hari was living with a German officer, and at the same time, it was claimed that she was having affairs with young aviators. However, it was impossible to obtain even the slightest evidence against her. With the outbreak of World War I, Mata Hari's situation became increasingly complicated. French authorities initially decided to deport her. However, upon this order, Mata Hari said she was loyal to France, and even claimed that to prove this allegiance, she could obtain and pass on information from the German Crown Prince and the Duke of Brunswick, with whom she was very intimate. This proposal was immediately accepted, and it was decided that Mata Hari would go to Spain and then proceed to England. However, when Mata Hari set foot in England, the British Secret Intelligence Service sent her back to Spain. Apparently, all this choreography was nothing but a trap set for Mata Hari. Nobody trusted her. She was brave but alone. According to some accounts, while living in The Hague in late 1915, an honorary German consul offered to pay her for any information she could obtain during her next trip to France. Mata Hari later admitted that she had received money from Germany, but had only given a German intelligence officer outdated information. In Madrid, too, Mata Hari's behavior continued to invite suspicion. She was said to be having affairs with German Army and Navy attachés. The French began to suspect that Mata Hari was playing a double game. They believed she was selling information to both the Germans and the French. On May 2, 1917, Mata Hari decided to return to Paris. Her friends reminded her that she was under suspicion and advised her to change her mind. However, she didn't listen to any of these warnings. She considered herself innocent and couldn't understand why she should be afraid. Mata Hari was arrested on February 13, 1917, and imprisoned in Paris. French authorities claimed that she had conducted espionage activities for Germany that resulted in the deaths of up to 50,000 French soldiers. This was an enormous accusation, but there was no concrete evidence to support this claim. The document found on her regarding receiving money when she was arrested was the first piece of evidence. Another piece of evidence was the 30,000 mark note she had received from the German Secret Service before returning to France in 1915. Mata Hari rejected the court's accusations regarding these sums of money, saying, "I received gifts." Mata Hari was tried in a military court on July 24th to 25th, 1917, and was sentenced to death despite the lack of strong evidence. The trial process was quite controversial, and there were serious doubts about whether a fair hearing had been conducted. About 3 months later, on October 15, 1917, Mata Hari was executed by firing squad. Mata Hari, who remained quite calm while going to her execution, maintained her courage until the very end. She refused to be blindfolded, and with this behavior, she showed an example of courage and composure. Although the claim that she blew kisses to her executioners was later refuted, it's certain that she maintained her dignity until her final moment. In the years following her death, Mata Hari became the subject of countless books and films. As more information came to light, doubts about her guilt began to emerge. The German government officially cleared her name in 1930, and it was reported that the French file documenting her activities actually showed her innocence. In 2017, France released various documents related to Mata Hari, and these convinced many people that the French authorities, who were looking for someone to blame for the country's setbacks in the war, used Mata Hari as a scapegoat. Additionally, it was assumed that her disrespect for social norms also played a role in her arrest, conviction, and execution. Mata Hari's story also sheds light on the difficulties faced by women of her time. As a woman who tried to live freely, tried to achieve economic independence, and challenged social norms, she both inspired admiration and was perceived as a threat. Today, historians generally agree that Mata Hari probably wasn't a real spy in the true sense. In the paranoid atmosphere created by World War I, French society and authorities, who needed a scapegoat to bear the burden of war, found Mata Hari suitable for this role. Mata Hari's real tragedy perhaps lies in the fact that she was sacrificed while trying to be a modern woman. As a woman who tried to determine her own destiny, lived her sexuality freely, and aimed for economic independence, she was far ahead of her time. However, this pioneering spirit cost her life. In conclusion, Mata Hari's story is not just the individual tragedy of one woman, but also the complex story of an era, a war, and social change. This figure, caught between legend and reality, has continued to captivate our imagination for over a century, and perhaps her true identity will never be fully revealed.